you'll please stand, we'll have an invocation by Councilwoman Tate, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman Stepp.
If you'll bow your head. Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful day. We thank you for the crowd gathered here tonight, our City Council meeting. Lead and guide this council as we make decisions. We appreciate the city we live in and the many good fortunes that have come our way. All this we ask in the holy and precious name. Amen.
Amen.
Join me in the pledge. Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Somebody get that phone. Connie, call the roll.
Carrie Hodge, Ward 1.
Here.
Jay Stepp, Ward 2.
Here.
Louis Tonsmeyer, Ward 3.
Here.
Lindsay McDaniel, Ward 4.
Here.
Diane Tate, Ward 5.
Here.
Lori Pruitt, Ward 6.
Here.
Thank you, Connie. The first item on our agenda tonight, we actually have a series of 3 meeting minutes. 2 from special call meetings that were held on July 30th and August 2nd, the morning of. And then the third is our regular council meeting minutes from the evening of August 2nd. The council, you've had these well in advance tonight. If there are any additions or corrections, if you'll please note those, and if not, the chair will entertain a motion.
Mayor, can we accept a motion for all 3 with one motion?
Of course.
You certainly can. It's actually preferable.
Second.
I don't think she's technically made the motion yet.
I did it twice. 2 weeks in a row?
Yep. I make a motion to approve.
I get with
Now.
all 3. Go ahead and
All 3.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. We're off to a flying start. We're going to honor somebody well worthy of the honor this evening. I'll call Mr. Anderson forward, please.
Yes, sir, Mayor and Council. The Parks and Recreation Department, well, the whole community, we lost a person that was an advocate for Parks and Recreation ever since I've been at Cartersville, and plus a long time before then. Robert Ed Hicks had done a lot for the Little League program, and then he did a lot for the Parks and Recreation Department as my tenure here. I know he was on City Council prior to that, and I know he was a longtime member of the Cartersville Planning Commission. But after Robert Ed's passing, I received a couple of letters in compliance with our naming rights for the City of Cartersville's policy. And this was a request to rename one of our parks, the Clearwater Street Park, which is home of Cartersville Little League baseball fields. It's also in what they call, it's in the village, Atco Village, which is where Robert Ed grew up, and all this just seemed to tie together. And so the request was made to rename Clearwater Street Park to Robert Ed Hicks Park. It went before the Recreation Advisory Board at our last Monday night a week ago's meeting. It was unanimously approved there. And I bring before you the recommendation from the Recreation Advisory Board and myself to rename Clearwater Street Park. It will be the Robert Ed Hicks Park. And there's Robert Ed's daughter, Robin, is here, his son-in-law, his sons, and his outlaws over here, Joe and Linda. But anyway, Robert is, again, he was very involved with our program, and this is a very, I think it's a great gesture for us to be able to do this, and I recommend it.
Any discussion? If not, the chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
On your agenda, the next item is item C1 in reference to alcohol beverages ordinance related to brown bagging. Council, we're going to set that item aside. There's still further discussion and fact gathering that needs to take place before council's ready to take final action on that. And so we will simply set that aside for now. The next item on the agenda is an amendment to the alcohol beverage ordinance related to ID requirements. Mr. Menino.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a second reading also. There have been no additions or changes since the first reading. The Alcohol Control Board does recommend this to you for your approval. It's cleaning up of the existing alcohol ordinance that had some redundant requirements in there for identification and so forth. And since 2004, when this was adopted, our SAVE documentation already covers some of this material. So it's a cleanup of removing some redundant material.
Any discussion on this item? If there is none, the chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Amendment to the administration ordinance regarding record retention. Sam?
Yes, this is an item that we came across in Savannah. It codifies what we do in terms of record retention. It covers the length of keeping the records, appoints me as the custodian, but essentially outlines how all those are kept. It does not change the way that we do business, and I recommend it for your approval.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We have a couple of public hearings, first reading of zoning and annexation matters. Mr. Menino, why don't you get us started?
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. This property has been properly posted and advertised. Adjacent owners have been notified, and that is also for the next case that's on the agenda. Back in 2005, the city acquired and annexed a strip of property off of 293. The original annexation included right-of-way along Pagamine Road, along 293 to this strip. The strip now has become a burden for future use and development of that property, and with that, there's a request to have it de-annexed, and with that, the county had no objection to this application.
Mr. Archer, if you'll take just a second and give I know it's difficult for you, a brief history on
Yeah, I was involved in the negotiation for the city to not only be, this property to not only be annexed, but the second part that's not before you today, that will come before you, is that this property was actually conveyed from New Riverside Oakland to the city of Cartersville as a donation. And it's a little strip. The purpose of the donation and the annexation is both Bartow County and the city of Cartersville were involved in efforts to prevent a regional landfill from locating on Pagamine Road back a few years ago. I approached New Riverside Oakland with the suggestion that if they would donate a 10-foot strip around the border of their property and allow the city to annex that, own it and annex it, because of a statute that said if city-owned property was within a certain number of feet of a regional landfill, like it's being proposed, it prohibited it. And so New Riverside Oakland was kind enough to make that donation. We did the annexation, and we used that as one of the legal arguments against that landfill when they filed a lawsuit. I was arguing that on behalf of Bartow County, because they sued Bartow County, they didn't sue the city of Cartersville. Now, it is now the intention of New Riverside Oakland to sell that property. Well, actually, New Riverside doesn't own it anymore. I think some other people own the property adjoining it, and it's going to be sold. And they want to annex it into the city of Emerson, but they can't annex it into the city of Emerson because we own that 10-foot strip. So Keith and I have looked at the law on it, and when we have a strip that is of no value or use to the city, there is a state statute that would allow us to convey that property back to New Riverside Oakland. So after the de-annexation, assuming you approve it, we will come back to you in an open council meeting approve the conveyance of that property that was donated to us by New Riverside Oprah back to New Riverside Oprah because we don't need it anymore. Did you want all that?
Actually, yeah, it's kind of
Makes
interesting.
sense.
So, and I think it puts into context the reason for de-annexing, because we're not typically in the business of doing it. So in this case, this is a well-worthy special exception to that.
Yeah, they helped us out.
Absolutely. All right, well, now that we've got the history lesson on that, this is the first reading. I'll open up a public hearing relative to case AZ 12-05. Anybody wishing to speak for or against may step forward at this time. And seeing none, I'll close the public hearing relative to file AZ 12-05. We'll move on to the, once again, first reading. We'll take this up for consideration at our next council meeting. We'll now move on to file AZ 12-06. Mr. Marino.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. As you had pointed out, this is an annexation and a zoning for this particular application. It's a conglomerate of approximately 7 tracts that is split in jurisdiction and split in zoning. These parcels are along the original city boundary line, and the boundary cuts right through them, where portions of the property in the city jurisdiction zone, general commercial, and the remaining portions of those lots are in the county's jurisdiction. Additionally, it's also included as part of our donut hole initiative, where these properties, as you can see, are completely surrounded in larger part by the city jurisdiction. With that, the applicant is trying to put them together for future development and has requested that it have one jurisdiction, and the city's always been supportive of trying to clean up the donut holes within the city. You know, dual jurisdiction lots create public safety issues and other particular instances where there could be multiple problems when you have a parcel that's in not only 2 jurisdictions but has 2 zonings. With that, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of this application. Additionally, there were comments that came up about a dilapidated house on one of these properties. It's been a concern. The city was under the impression that that particular property or dilapidated building was in the county jurisdiction. Well, the property is split, half in the county, half in the city, but it turns out the actual structure's in the city's jurisdiction. So the question came up to the Planning Commission about conditioning that to make sure that property is removed properly and so forth. I believe the city attorney at that time advised it wasn't necessary because it's already in the county jurisdiction anyway. We're now aware of it and we can proceed with any code enforcement actions necessary. However,
Not to interrupt, but you mean city jurisdiction.
city jurisdiction, yes, excuse me. Sometimes I just start rambling. With that, again, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of this annexation and this zoning, subsequent zoning with the property. The individual city departments also reviewed it, and the only comments were regarding the dilapidated structure.
Thank you. And we're well aware of your rambling.
And the applicant is present.
Stop calling me Shirley.
Thank you, Randy. Right now, I'll open up, we'll have 2 public hearings relative to this. The first public hearing is the zoning portion of request AZ 12-06. Anybody wishing to step forward, speak for or against, may do so at this time.
I suppose I better earn my keep.
Well, you're paying yourself, so it's your own time. Please say your name and your address for our clerk, please.
My name is Mark Harris. I reside at 110 Maple Drive, and I am the applicant by default. I am not the developer nor the buyer of this property. I do represent the buyer. It's Bellawood Development. He's out of, their group is out of Greensboro, North Carolina. They are retail developers, and they have visions of redeveloping not only the northeast corner of that intersection, but also the southeast corner. The southeast corner is not a subject of this zoning application. And to answer a couple of questions that have come to me through the grapevine, the house that needs to be torn down, if it's still there, when my developer buys it, obviously he's going to masquerade the whole site and tear all the improvements down. He's working in conjunction with the person that has the property under contract on the Penn northeast corner, which is the
Long John
Long John Silver's. I keep wanting to call it the other place, but it's Long John Silver's. And then that effort was going to be a standalone fast food. It wasn't big enough, it didn't make it, so now they're working together to bring in a larger user for that parcel and the 4 parcels behind it. So this will all be a redevelopment of both of those corners, but I'm basically here to represent my buyer and answer any questions that might come up out of this application.
I guess I should have asked this in the work session, but that one thin strip that's just between Long John Silver, that little blue rectangle there, is that an easement or is that part of?
Very good question. We don't have any surveys yet of that, but we anticipate that to be, to actually belong to the property, that property there to the north, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Did I understand you say that the Long John Silvers and the house that needs to come down, that there's a possibility of eating establishment, some type of business, to be placed on both of those parts of land?
The question is, will there be an eating establishment there? Quite possibly on the north end of that property, there may be a restaurant. We're dealing with more than one right now, but the corner will likely not be a restaurant. We do have distance restrictions to the church that is just further east and down Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, at, I believe, Galt Street or Galt Drive, dead end dirt road. So all that's being looked at, but the restaurants will probably, if the restaurant were to come into fruition, it would be on the northern 2 parcels, on the northeast quadrant of that intersection.
You mentioned something about the church there. I've heard a lot of discussion about it.
About the church?
Yes.
We have no involvement in the church. We've not talked to anyone at the church and really don't intend to.
No.
Not concerning acquiring the church.
Okay.
Now, I have talked to a couple of members there that had questions about what we were doing, and but no, we have no interest in acquiring the church at this time in particular.
Okay.
Okay.
And currently, there are or are not residents on any of these pieces?
There are 2 occupied residences to the north of Long John Silver's, kind of hidden, tucked in there behind the trees. There you go. You can see them there. You see the little white roof and the black roof house there. Those are 2 occupied residences. I believe there's only 1 occupant in each resident and those students that we were able to determine. So I think we filled out all the proper paperwork on that, didn't we, Richard?
And they're aware?
Yes, we're under contract to purchase those properties as well. Yeah, we have Long John Silver's under 1 contract, and then we had the 3 parcels to the east, and then the 1 larger parcel to the east coming down that belongs to Richard Cole, and then we have the 2 houses north of Long John Silver's, about roughly 5.5 acres under contract.
Any other questions for Mr. Harris?
No.
Good,
Sir.
well, thank you.
All right, once again, this is a public hearing relative to the zoning portion of AZ 12-06. Anybody wishing to step forward, speak for or against, may do so at this time. And seeing none, I'll close the public hearing relative to zoning, and I'll open the public hearing relative to the annexation portion of AZ 12-06. Once again, anybody wishing to step forward may do so at this time. And seeing none, I will close the annexation hearing relative to 12-06. And we'll take this up for final consideration at our next council meeting. We have the first reading of an amendment. We have actually a couple first readings of ordinances, pardon me. Mr. Molinax, I believe you have the next item on the agenda. This is regarding capacity fees.
Yes. Mayor, Council, this ordinance change is a clarification to define and clarify how capacity fees are calculated for apartments and hotels. We recommend approval.
Can't say that with a straight face, can you?
So the ones with refrigerators and stoves use more water, right?
Well, what we wanted to address are extended stay hotels
Right.
are pretty much like a residence, so they need to pay a capacity fee that is commensurate with a typical residence.
Okay.
And then a regular hotel room without a kitchenette is calculated at 1/2 the capacity fee for a residence.
All right, any questions for Ed on this item? Thank you, sir. Once again, first reading of an ordinance, we'll take no action on that item tonight. And we have another first reading of an ordinance regarding pouring license fees. Mr. Menino.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. We've had a request to amend the alcohol control ordinance regarding fees. The particular section of this of the ordinance requires that if an establishment changes managers during the year, the new manager is required to come in and pay the full fee structure all over again. The amendment just requires a reduction of that. If the full fee has already been paid at that particular establishment for that year, they just have to pay a nominal $100 fee to renew that particular license. As of right now, establishment, if they had had to pay all the entire fees, it equals up to about $2,700. And if it's been paid for the year, it seems logical that they wouldn't have to pay it again just because they had a change in the management. So with that, Alcohol Control Board did recommend this amendment for your approval.
I think it is important to note, I asked it during the work session, but the $100 fee is just to cover the cost of the city processing the new application.
That is correct. We still have to go through the Alcohol Control Board meeting for the new manager. They have to fill out all the appropriate paperwork, have the background research done, and a public hearing conducted for that particular new application.
And they met this morning to consider this?
They did. They had a special called meeting to hear this proposed amendment, and they did recommend approval.
I certainly appreciate your work and their work on it. Thanks.
No problem. And again, we have more than one establishment that is very interested in doing this.
Not to sound too political, but I think it's important to point out that we have taken special steps, not only to get that through the Alcohol Control Board to be considered tonight because there are several applicants, but this is an example of the city finding ways to help businesses.
Yeah, we were able to work with them and
common sense and make things a little bit more equitable and common sense ones. So I appreciate everybody involved in that. Any other comments or questions from Mr. Menino? Thank you, sir. And once again, this is the first reading of an ordinance. No action will be taken by council tonight. We'll take it up at our next council meeting. Don, you've got the next item. Yes, sir. Greg, you're on deck.
Who's in the hall?
Honorable Mayor and Council, appreciate the opportunity to come to you tonight, but we're asking for adoption by resolution the use of the APPA safety manual. We've been using this guide as a guide for several years, and we're trying to. We feel like we're promoting safety. We want to establish a safe culture with for Cartersville electric workers, and this will help us do so. And this guide, this safety manual, is revised and updated annually. It's a standard used by quite a few electric utilities, and we're going for our RP3 certification, which is reliable public power provider. And one of the stipulations, they strongly recommend that you have your city council approved by resolution the use of this manual. And that's what we're here tonight to ask that you approve by resolution via the attached resolution form, and to help us promote our safety among our employees.
Thank you. Any questions?
I want to get one clarification. I note in your comments that the document is frequently updated and revised.
Right.
And we're adopting the latest revision. When it changes again, do we have to re-adopt, or can we just adopt the ongoing as amended or as revised?
I believe we're going to probably have to do this again when it revised?
Well, I think the main reason for that is the resolution, the passing of a resolution counts towards the certification that you're trying to do.
That is correct.
So when it changes, you'll come back to us and let us know?
Yes, it's currently a 2-year certification program, but they're looking to extend it to 3 years. So hopefully it'll be, in 3 years, we'd come back and do the same.
The only question I have about it is normally when we adopt codes, we do it by ordinance and not
No,
by resolution.
This is for their internal training. This is not a code.
Okay. So it's not, then it's not binding as
No.
it were
It's just
part
a
of the code of
resolution.
ordinance.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just-
Yeah, I hadn't seen the book. I
It's
don't-
just a certification. I think. And one of the steps of certification is get counsel to
Okay.
approve.
Any other discussion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Mr. Anderson.
Yes, sir. Mayor and council, these contracts or agreements are with the Georgia Department of Corrections. It covers the 4 work crews that the city of Cartersville has, 2 with Parks and Recreation and 2 with Public Works. We contract at $39,500 per crew. This is the same as last year. It's budgeted items for both departments. We have the E-Verify documentation, and I recommend approval of this.
Any
Motion,
discussion?
motion to approve.
Second?
Thank you. All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
We'll make that mistake soon.
This next item, Mayor, is a subordination agreement regarding 24 Georgia Boulevard. Again, I think we had one of these on the agenda last month. One of our first-time homebuyers through the CHIPS program is looking to refinance and utilize the lower interest rates that are out there. With that, we have to go through this process and redo the subordination agreement. With that, we do recommend approval of this.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Very good. Very good. Things on autopilot.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Public Works Department solicited bid proposals on a compact hydraulic excavator for our stormwater division. We received 10 qualified bids ranging from the low bid from Mason Tractor Company out of Blue Ridge, Georgia, $42,425, to the highest bid from Franklin Tractor, $55,000. We would like to recommend the low bid from Mason Tractor in Blue Ridge, Georgia for $42,425. E-Verify and Save documentation are all covered, and it's well under budget.
Any discussion on this item?
Motion to approve?
Second. All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Continue on, please.
We also solicited bid proposals from 8 vendors on a boom mowing tractor with the mower. We've got a 1993 model New Holland tractor with a Tiger manufacturing mower on it that's served us well, but it's very, very tired. We've put off, I think, 2 or 3 years based on our economy, trying to repurchase a new unit. We got 4 qualified bids initially. We had 1 local vendor that had a typo in the bid, and it was evident that it was a typo. We discussed it, so we've allowed that bid number 5 to be qualified. The lowest qualified bid price was from Reinhardt Tractor Company out of Rome, Georgia, for $92,495. We'd like to recommend as a department the low bid from Reinhardt.
Any discussion on this item?
Bobby, you said that the local bid was 8%, 8.1%, is that right?
The Franklin Tractor bid.
Franklin Tractor, yes,
Yeah,
sorry.
Franklin Tractor bid a New Holland model with the Tiger mower at $99,989. which is $7,494 difference, or about 8.1% higher.
Okay. And that would be replacing it with the same name brand tractor and same boom mower?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Franklin tractor bid at $99,989 that would replace the boom mower and tractor that we've had for the last 20 years. I think by being able to do it locally and be able to use maintenance here locally, in my eyes, this is the best bid. So I make a motion to approve the lowest local bid at $99,989 to Franklin Tractor.
We have a motion, and do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 And I've got 3 in favor. Any opposed, like sign? We got 3 opposed. Thank you, council. Y'all would do that every time, and I get my way every time, but in this case I will. And while I understand the concern about doing business locally, I think at 8.1% and $7,494 of taxpayer money, that I'm going to recommend the low bid as proposed by Public Works. And so that, actually, I can't do that, can I? Actually, I'm going to vote no on that, so that that motion does not pass. I apologize. So I'm going to vote no on that motion, and I've explained why, even though we really need to. And the floor is still open for any other motions.
Can I just make one? I mean, I understand, and I guess this is not a time to preach or get up on the podium, but, you know, to me, I understand it's, you know, the taxpayer money, and I understand that we have a budgeted item and there's $7,000 difference. But I also think it's taxpayer money when we look at, we're going to be sending $93,000 out of the county and out of the city, as opposed to spending $100 or right at $99 locally, which we get sales tax on and things of that sort. You know, that was sort of where I was coming. I wanted to be more clear about it, that I think in truth, you know, I don't know what, you know, if you can do the lifetime of the quote and of the rates, you know, that the $99,000 locally might end up being a better deal financially. I'm a taxpayer, and I can walk down the street and let everybody know that, you know, if I voted for this at $99,000, that I truthfully think that it might be a better deal. Now, that's my opinion, but I wanted to clarify that I wasn't trying to spend additional money from taxpayers. I think in a way it comes back to us.
And I'm sorry if my comments
No.
were construed that way. You and I talked about this earlier, and I think and in the past we've had, I think, a recreation tractor that last year came up with the numbers were a little bit closer. And so that's, I think in this case, the percentage I'm not real comfortable with, and I don't know what kind of legal issues that opens us up to, that kind of disparity. I don't know if it does or doesn't bring up anything, and you say no, and I believe you, but anyway, I've decided to vote against that motion, so it does not carry, and the floor is still open for further discussion.
Mayor,
or any other motions.
something. Jace, I grew up in the hardware tractor business in East Tennessee, and I certainly hear what you're saying, because I know how my father felt about bids and keeping it local and so forth. So I really do clearly hear what you're saying, and I also, it's just an 8.1%. We're all pulling for our local businesses, there's no question. I mean, I hope we wouldn't be sitting right here if we didn't really have a heart for that. So I appreciate you making those statements.
Bobby, included in your bid process, do you have a list of what the charges would be if we were to have to send the mower or the tractor to have work done in Blue Ridge? I mean, under warranty, it lasts for so long.
This is in Rome. This is Rome, Georgia.
I'm Rome, I'm sorry.
No, it's hard to quantify all that. But I do know, you know, we've done lots of business with Franklin, as we have with Bartow Farm and Lawn. They're our local people. But we've also done research on Reinhardt, and they're an outstanding, even though they're not in the city, they're an outstanding dealership. And We've also, this would be, if approved, the first Kubota tractor of this size that, to my knowledge, that we've ever purchased. We've done our homework on that too.
Sure.
What's your budget on this?
We've got 109,000 budgeted for this unit and a 15-foot bush hog that will come later.
What do you think that's gonna cost?
Probably about 10. So they're going, it'll be real close. The plan is, the tractor that we have now with the boom mower on it, the tractor is not completely worn out, the mower is gone. And the plan was to put the 15-foot bush hog behind this tractor that we're taking the mower off of. That's the plan.
I have a question. Will we be on the end? Of course, I know we're not going to, what the deciding issue is so far, but would we, by taking Franklin at the 99 versus 92, will we be under any penalty from the power to be government?
You're required to take the lowest and best bid.
Okay.
And so always, sometimes the lowest bid may not necessarily be the best bid.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, you know, I don't want to comment on legal matters in public. I did that one time and it backfired on me. So I won't say anymore.
Do we pay taxes on the purchase?
No, sir.
My reason for voting for it was because when I found out it was under the budget, you know. So many times we have to procure out of budget, and this is a way to put 99,000 in the hands of Cartersville versus sending 92 across some other county. In these economic times, well, that was my reason. I guess I've done a lot of buying, but
That'll cost a lot, please.
well,
Bobby, I appreciate you and the other department heads being careful with these bids and making sure that our local vendors, and as you did in the previous bid, gave them a call to double check a typo and that kind of thing. I think that's what we as council are hoping and expecting our department heads to do, and thank you. With that, Mayor, I'll make a motion. Make a motion for the low bid.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
3-4, any opposed, like sign? Any opposed, I'll vote in favor of that motion, and it carries.
Can I make a comment?
Can I stop you from making a comment?
This just reminded me of many years ago when Clarence Benham was on council. John Dent was mayor, and Clarence voted against something. I don't remember what it was. And John Dent got mad at Clarence for voting against it and vetoed it because he wanted a unanimous vote. And Clarence told John, said, Mayor, if we all vote the same way all the time, we wouldn't need but one of us to be up here.
that's right.
So,
That's a good story.
Parables of David.
Mr. Porter, you have the next item.
Yes, Mayor, I'll spend a little more taxpayer dollars, but we did do the same bidding process as Bobby mentioned on furniture and fixtures for our new public safety and fire station. Sent this out to a number of vendors. 6 of them had sent back bids. There was a 7th one that did specialized furniture, particularly for a police 911 center. Recommending the lowest bidder, which is Veterans Furniture Service from Cartersville. They bid all the Han products, and there's some other products within that bid. There's 119 different items listed in the bid package. Total of this is $167,201.74. I recommend, again, the lowest best bid from Veterans Service. Also, there's some Dell computers and evidence dryer and fire bedding and day room furniture for both buildings as well that are needed, and they're listed on the agenda item. I recommend all these items for purchase and coming out of the 2007 SPOS funds.
Any discussion on this item?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Mr. Molinax, you've got the next 2, please.
Mayor, council, bids were received for the installation of piping for the Etowah River emergency pump station. Due to the complexity of this project, we pre-qualified the bidders. 4 bidders submitted bids on the project. Heavy Construction Inc. submitted the low bid in an amount of $508,300. We've done work with these folks before. In fact, they installed the 48-inch pipe around the powerhouse that delivers water to the plant. Based on the recommendation of our engineers, we recommend the project be awarded to Heavy Construction Inc. in the amount of $508,300. We do have the E-Verify and Save documentation in hand.
Questions or comments or motions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item.
The next item is an annual process we go through. It's approval of the chemical suppliers for the water treatment plant and the water pollution control plant. You should have in your package a list of suppliers that provide chemicals to the water department. We do have the E-Verify and Save documentation in on these vendors. We recommend approval of pre-qualifying these suppliers to buy chemicals from them during the fiscal year of 2012 and 13.
Any discussion on this item?
Motion to approve.
Second?
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Ed. We do have, council, at your approval, the ability to add an item to the agenda. Chair will entertain a motion to add that item.
Motion to add the item.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Item is added. Mr. Archer.
In connection with the pump station that Ed just talked about, giving the approval with regard to that construction, the real estate upon which that pump station will be constructed, we had previously been approved to get an option agreement from the owner of that property for over 2 acres. He had it appraised, and we have agreed to pay the appraised price. The total price would be $180,180 for the property. The owner of the property also happens to be an attorney, so from Atlanta, and he prepared an option agreement that I propose that you authorize the mayor of city clerk to sign. We have a scheduled closing for in the morning to purchase that property.
Any further discussion on this item?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And motion carries. Sam, you have a couple of informational items you'd like to comment on?
If Dan could come up, he copied you some information on running fiber to the corporate park, which has become ever more timely with the announcement of our first resident in the park, and also to information relative to budget for the DDA and what the bottom line is on that relative to giving that the support now that we brought it in-house. So
I'll start out with the DDA budget, Mayor. Basically, I handed out that to you before the meeting. Tara Courier has put together a budget, and Sam and I have discussed this with her. Total expenses for the department we're estimating this year, fiscal year, is $155,500. There are some revenues listed on page 1 that does not include membership dues that's being proposed. Going forward on a calendar year basis, so there could be some additional revenues other than $30,500 that are listed. Basically, if you take
that also includes the 12 from the county.
Correct.
I wondered about.
And they typically pay in February. They're on a calendar year budget. So if you take the net effect of that, of the expenses less the proposed revenue, and there, again, it could be some additional revenue and some additional sponsorships for concerts and all, that's going to be Tara's job to go out there and market that. The net effect is $125,000 net expenses over revenues. Typically, in the past several years, we've been contributing $85,000, which is not shown on there since we're kind of incorporating this in our overall budget. So if you take the net effect of $125,000 less the $85,000 we typically have contributed, leaves a net difference of $40,000. Again, we're just using this as a first year, trying to figure out what our costs are going to be. It will be a little bit more than we have done in the past. We kind of recommend, Sam and I and Tara recommending this, and we can discuss this a later date if you need more time to digest
If
it.
you want to take it and look at it, we can put it as an agenda item and have to formally approve it, or if you're comfortable with it tonight and want to give us a nod to go ahead with it, that's fine too.
I know that pulling from past finances probably won't be that easy of a thing, but I think what would be helpful for me is to see if we have an 11-12 budget that could maybe sit next to it, so we can see the differences between last year and this year, see where that additional 40,000 is coming from.
Sure. Well,
like I said, I don't know how easy that's going to be.
we'll try to pull some stuff together based on the Quicken books they had down there at the DDA, and try to come up with some additional numbers for you to look at.
You know, I'd also like to see what they actually spent last year on advertising, specifically on advertising.
Okay.
I think that's a downfall of the DDA. They try to do so much, but they don't have the budget to actually get the information out. So I'd really be interested to know what they actually spent on that.
Okay. That will not be a problem. We'll try to pull together, like I said, all the information we can out of their accounting system they were using.
Anybody else?
Is a Konica Minolta a camera?
No, they actually had a lease on a copier, and that's going to expire in January. We couldn't get out of that lease for the copy machine. We're actually, the $7,500 you'll see in there as capital lease proceeds, we're actually intending to buy a copy machine when that lease expires, because it's cheaper to buy one and own it for many more years than the 5-year lease. Long term will be savings on that.
Okay, then the other item that we needed input on was the goal of council to extend fiber to Highland 75.
Correct, and that was in your packet handout. If you don't have it, I'll just kind of briefly. Lamar Grayson over the fiber department got with Parker Systems, who's done some work for us running fiber services. They gave basically 2 prices to run that fiber cable from our nearest connected location to the fiber to the industrial park. One rate they have is $218,035.60. That has a rock contingency. If they do hit rock, there will be some additional charges depending on how many feet they have to work to bore that, go through the rock. But that's basically them doing the work for us, and if we, don't have a contractual agreement that we own the fiber to the park all by ourselves, and of course this is based on us anticipating, hopefully getting some customers down the road. They also provided a partnership rate where they will do the same work at $164,454, and we would enter a kind of a mutual agreement. May not be 50-50, maybe 60-40 our favor, or a little bit more, because we do have some agreements with them. If you recall, about 6 months ago, to run fiber to the airport, they were doing that as part of their line to get some service for other jobs, and they actually serve a Harvard Clinic for us, kind of a mutual partnership. But so that partnership rate is less than the contractor rate. Again, they're kind of basically going into that as potentially getting some revenue off of that too. We've not, formally come up with what that percentage would be. There was money left over in last year's budget in fiber department that we could use cash reserves to pay for this cost.
But it's not budgeted.
It's not budgeted.
That's why it's being discussed with you. And is there one that he would recommend of those 2?
We've had a good working relationship. I mean, it really depends if the council wants to take that risk on. If we, because Parker basically is doing it. The 164,000 number is kind of them almost at their cost. They're willing to do it and not, potentially get some long-term gain out of it as well.
Okay. Again, this is unbudgeted. This is to address a council item that was given to us early in the year. So we need some direction as to what you'd like to do with it.
So we're discussing this now because we need the fiber optics to go in because of the new tenant or because of possible tenants? Possible tenants.
The new tenant, I've talked with Melinda. Of course, that's down on the list, but eventually we will try to get to the new customer that's in the park and any future ones. But it's again like any electric system competing against Georgia Power, where we can compete against AT&T.
We're talking too about that as well, so it just made sense to talk about both of them since you want both of them.
We brought it up during our visioning last year, and if you remember, the state legislature considered or failed to pass last year. There was some legislation up for consideration that would have made expanding existing systems like this impossible without having a public vote.
That's a good point.
Sure.
And so we talked about, this legislation, we know it's forthcoming. We've got this industrial park up there. If we build the infrastructure to serve that park before the legislation passes, then we would have that option. If the legislation passes and we haven't built this, then we are forever kind of in a boxed in. But it is an important point to say, we could run this fiber out there, we'd be competing with somebody, and we might not get the business. So, like in anything else, I mean, these are enterprise funds that, just like water, electric, gas.
How do we fund this?
They had a cash carryover from last year. They had made a profit.
Budget.
And so they have cash going forward, and typically we've been using that to offset. When we started the system back in '96, there was some debt that's still paying off that debt.
But it's a fiber optic fund.
Correct.
Funding, not general fund.
That is correct.
What are you asking for from us?
I think just
Direction as to whether or not you want to go with the one in which we take on all the cost, or the one in which we share. One of those two. I didn't hear clearly whether or not there was a recommendation. They were kind of both just.
Well, it's really up to the city council if you want us to, because it's a risk to go out to the park, and we don't know if we're going to get tenants, but, that's the goal. We're trying to sell to them, but being there obviously is the selling point. I'm sure Melinda can address that, being on site.
I guess probably the reason you're being asked is clearly something you don't want to do with the money, and it's something that we don't want to approach. Then we need to hear that.
I think I'm totally confused on what the options are. I
Okay,
mean, what are they
Go
saying?
back through it. There's one in which basically we build it and we take on all the costs, and there's one in which we share it, and they'll help us do it.
And they get part of the revenue.
They would
after
get some of the
fact.
revenue.
It's $55,000 cheaper.
Right.
If they get a cut,
Yeah.
50, 60, 40, whatever the future is, they'll cut us a break right now of $55,000.
Correct.
Or we front the whole thing. What about ongoing maintenance of the lines? How are we going to deal with that?
Typically, we've worked on that. I mean, we're the owners of that line, so we pay the ongoing
I would
maintenance.
think that any kind of agreement that we have with them is going to have to come in here for approval. I'm
Yes.
asking for, do you want to do it? And if you do, what?
Well, I understand
If you're
that,
asking
but
a poll, I think we gotta get it out there. I mean, so,
Now, and you want to spend on budget funds, that's what I need to know.
Would take a couple more weeks on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically, I just explained, we could,
To you, though.
I know that.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had the information for, I think we've gotten that packet twice. So, I guess if you'll just put that on as a discussion item for our
There's a
next.
business coming.
Is there, what's the likelihood there's going to be parallel fiber lines run out there?
well, I'm not sure, we don't know where AT&T's lines even, how close they are already.
We don't know.
That's
how
private
quickly
company.
can I get it out there?
They could, I would imagine, would probably take them a couple of weeks, as long as they don't hit rock on the way out there, which would take them a little longer. I mean,
Is that something that eventually has to be voted on by us? Or can we?
The agreement with them would have to be, yeah, but I don't want to bring an agreement in here that essentially has us spending unbudgeted money and has an arrangement with somebody that you don't want to do business with.
Well, I've read through it a couple times. I mean, I would like to see us do it, not partnering up and get it out there, but that's.
Then we probably have to bid that, wouldn't we?
You could, but there's a limited amount of companies that actually can run the fiber that
But
would
I
be,
mean, they're gonna have to approve it though.
yes, oh yes, yeah, for that amount of money, yes.
It's gotta come on.
I tend to lean with Jace as well. I think we need it out there. I think if the fund has the money to put it out there, it seems like a reasonable way to expand the business and the fiber fund or the
How much
fiber
is there in
coverage.
carryover?
I
That's
don't
about
know.
300,000.
I don't know how I feel about sharing it with them because I don't know enough about what that deal is to figure out if that even makes sense. 'Cause they're gonna run it and take the money, but we're still maintaining it. I mean,
We've had, again, that was a discussion I've had, Lamar's had with them, but that's fine. I mean, we can be sole owners of it and take that responsibility on, and of whoever we get as a tenant, it's, profit back to the city.
we're sole owners of the whole other thing except for two things, Harbin Clinic and
We,
Airport.
actually, I think they just have a line going there. They have, it's a split partnership because they ran the line. I have to go back and look at that.
So this would, then we're not partners with them on anything else?
No, they
This
were
would be a
doing, we're
first.
kind of allowing them to run through our Cook Street node, as that's why they ran the line out to the airport for us. And
So
we're getting,
this would be something brand new then?
yes, correct.
I apologize too for bringing it to you in formal session, but I didn't think that we would have the time or the attention needed in the earlier session, so.
That's fine.
No, I agree it needs to go out there, but I don't know, I don't know about the sharing the ownership of it.
I agree, it needs to go out there. I'd like 2 weeks to talk some more, Dan, about the sharing versus us doing it. But I agree, it needs to go
Is
out
there
there.
more
also.
information that you would like us to specifically get for you relative
I would
to
like to
that?
go ahead and have it to be, I mean, can you go ahead and bid it?
Yeah, we can go ahead and bid it and then come back with
That
the
way in 2
proposal.
weeks,
And
if it's bid and it's a good price and we've hashed out sharing or
Okay.
not sharing. we can
I'm okay
vote.
with it.
Okay.
So I'm hearing consensus that, yes, you want it, number one, and number two, that it appears that most are comfortable with having us on the line, which I guess you presented as option one, the 218, where we would not be in a partnership, but that we would be doing this ourselves.
Okay.
I think
Is
that's
that,
fair.
is that fair consensus to speak for everybody?
Is that how you feel?
Bring the bids back at the next meeting?
yes.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Parker is putting in a fiber throughout the whole region here, even into Alabama and so forth, so they're very heavily involved. I'm not speaking one way or the other, except that I think we're gonna be interfacing with them.
Well, they may want to bid on doing our work.
Yeah, they're kind of becoming a regional player in the fiber business.
Okay,
Thank you.
any other informational items?
No, sir.
Both
Thank
are
you.
very informational, so thank you.
And I wanted to remind you too that we are working on the resolution that you wanted, if you want to talk
I'll
about
take care of that after we stop neglecting Tom Reinhardt with our
Okay.
monthly
Okay.
financial report.
it. Thank you.
You thought we forgot about you, Tom?
It's okay.
Or you kind of hoping that we did.
Well, there's a lot of other things going on tonight too, so. Honorable Mayor and Council, we'll be looking at the June 2012 and comparing it to June 2011. Just a couple of side notes. This is the fiscal year-end report. It is unaudited. These are on a cash basis. And also keep in mind that as we get closer to the year-end close being completed, these numbers will change due to the modified accrual basis that we will be going through and adding such items as depreciation expense, bond accruals, and fixed assets. In the general fund, revenues increased over June of 2011 by $647,000. This is due to the capital lease proceeds for the 2 fire engines. We did receive those in the month of June. Expenses have decreased by $95,000. This is due to decreased capital expenses. A couple of 3 areas that I monitor on a monthly basis are the local option sales tax. We have decreased since last year of $393,000. Police fines and forfeitures, we increased over last year $62,000. And building permits and inspection fees, we increased over last year by $17,000. Water and sewer fund, revenues increased over last year by $6.8 million. If you remember, we did do a bond closing to the tune of about $6.62 million. Also, the expenses increased by $372,000. This is due to increased capital expenses.
So Tom, I don't want to interrupt, but if we back that out of there, that's actually in the hole, isn't it?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Gas fund, revenues have decreased from last year by $3.4 million. This is due mainly to the very mild winter that we had last year. Expenses have decreased by $2.8 million. Of course, this is due to the decreased costs in purchased gas, again, related to the mild winter. In the electric fund, we have revenue increased by $3.0 million, while expenses have increased also by $2.1 million. This is due to the increased cost of the purchased electricity. Stormwater fund, we have revenues increased by $38,000. Expenses have decreased by $239,000. This decrease is due mainly to decreased capital expenses. In the solid waste fund, we have revenues increased over last year by $167,000.
while the expenses increased by $193,000. And finally, in the fiber optics fund, we have revenues decreased by $134,000, while expenses have decreased by $16,000. This is due to decreased operating expenses, decreased MEAG, debt service expenses, and decreased capital expenses. That is my report for the evening.
Any questions for Tom on the financial report?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Any other business that needs to come before council?
Mayor, just a comment. Rebecca Bolander and I attended the ribbon cutting for the Legion Theater, Pump House Players, with the chamber. And I just want to make this council aware, and anyone listening, this city or any city is really lucky to have live theater and a group that the whole year puts on plays that we can go and see at really nice cost and in a nice location. I just want to acknowledge them tonight because they bring a lot to this city, and we're lucky. There's many cities who would like to have live theater, and we have it right here.
Thank you. Very well said. Lindsay, I know we're at kickoff time.
There'll be a few
Don't forget
commercials.
about Pioneer Days, too.
What's that?
Don't forget to mention Pioneer Days.
Why don't you
again
mention
this year.
Pioneer Days?
Well, okay, I just want to mention once again Pioneer Days at Sam Smith Park over Labor Day weekend, so we won't be together again until after it's finished. And it starts at 4 o'clock on Friday the 31st, goes all the way through Monday night. I hope there's fireworks, I hope. And there's a concert planned, a big concert for the last night too as well, so it's a lot of fun.
Shenandoah is the band.
A lot of fun for families, so I hope everybody takes time to go out and support the cause.
Mr. Archer's put me to work on his stuff before the council meeting's even over with. Let the
I'm
record-
finished now.
Thank you. Lindsay, as I mentioned, I know we're getting close to kickoff, but if you'll please indulge me for just a minute. You know, this week's been a real good week for Cartersville and Bartow County. As many of you may know by now or should know, we have got our first tenant in Highland 75 Business Park, which is jointly a joint venture with the city and the county. Voestalpine Stamp Tech, based out of Austria. They make parts, component parts for automobiles, and they're going to be having their first North American presence here in Bartow County. It's the JDA Park, it's the Bartow side of the sandbox, but it's a win for Cartersville and all of Bartow County. And I just wanted to take a second to thank a lot of folks, and so, just like I said, please indulge me, I don't do this too often, I don't think, but, you know, first of all, past city and county leadership. And that includes a number of the people that are on this council, and everybody that's serving on this council now for having a vision and taking that risk of creating a spot that would attract industry and allow our city to continue to grow. Melinda Lemon's here with the JDA and she and her whole staff, Rachel and Connie, to be thanked as well. Certainly the JDA board, that's a volunteer board, puts a lot of time and effort into that, led by James Jarrett, who was a real important part of these negotiations. Certainly the state played a vital role in this, getting this project to us, and you know, the governor laid the groundwork for this a long time ago for this company. Gretchen Corbin, who's one of our homegrown talents that's now down at the state, Tom Croto and Wiley Harrison and Charles Stallworth with the economic development team of the state, and our dynamic duo of Archer and Lovell, who probably won't take enough credit, but played a real vital role in getting the details and the negotiating and getting points across, and the fine details that have to be worked out when you put a deal like this together, mixed with the personality and the humanity. I can't speak enough for their contributions to this process as well. And lastly, a thanks to the company. You know, we have had a lot of companies that have gone through that park, and we've talked with a number of companies, and not all of them, quite frankly, were a good fit. Some of them have gone other places, some of them not so far from here. This is the kind of company that came through the door from day one and knew they were going to get a good business deal. They looked at quality of life issues. They came in before they even met with us, went to restaurants, talked to people, went all around town to different employers, and got a good vibe and felt good about this community. And came through the door saying we want to get a good deal, but we don't want to come in here just to see how much we can cut from this community. We're going to be a part of this community, so why would we come in here and burn bridges on the way in? This is the right kind of company for our community, and I think that they're going to be a good long-term addition to what is already a fantastic industrial base. And we'll have a resolution at our next meeting with an opportunity for everybody on council to sign that we'll send to the board of directors. And there's been people that have been working on this park for 8 to 10 years, and I'm honored, and I think we all should be very proud of the fact that we get to sit here at this point in time that we've got the first one out there in Highland 75.
Matt,
Before Archie goes on.
hey, wait a minute, Matt. I think there's one person you forgot. And I know you're not going to mention yourself, but I'm grateful for your leadership and a lot of stuff, both public things and behind the scene. And I want to appreciate you publicly.
Give him a hand.
I want to say in those meetings, Matt Santini represented the city well, and I was proud to be sitting there and listening to our mayor speak to these guys, and was proud of the way he handled himself. And I want to say that Melinda Lemon did the best job she's ever done on an industrial prospect. And she has worked herself thin. And she's done a good job. Good job.
You can give her a hand?
Give her a hand.
Any other business that needs to come before council?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll also say, a very fine and spirited and fun meeting this evening. I enjoyed it. Motion to adjourn.